Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Madeline. I am the VP of the Print Club of Rochester. And tonight we're going to have our 2023 presentation print artist, KoichiYamamoto, give a little talk about his work and the print that he did for us. He would be our 89th artist that we've commissioned to do a print for our club. And Koichi will obviously tell us a lot more about him, but just give a quick introduction. He completed his BFA at the Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland, Oregon, and then moved to Krakow, Poland. Later, he studied engraving at the Bratislava Academy of Fine Arts in the Slavic Republic. Koichi also studied at the Academy of Fine Arts in Poznan, Poland, and completed an MFA at the University of Alberta, Canada. In addition, he has worked as a textile designer in Frederica, Denmark. He's exhibited internationally. He is taught at the Utah State University and the University of Delaware, and currently he is a professor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So, all right, now take it away, Koichi.
Great. Thank you, Maddie, and thank you, Sarah, for organizing this. And what an honor to be chosen as an 89th artist working on this. It's a monumental project, and I'm so excited to see that looks through the history of this Rochester Print Club that been continued doing this since 1930s. I mean, this is a remarkable legacy, and I'm honored to be part of that history. And then I hope this will continue to the next generation and inspire young artists to understand the value of the printmaking and some community art. I'm gonna share screen. I'm gonna talk about what I do and what I love to do. I guess it's not just what I do, but I mean, there's a different kind of motivation for making art, or I mean, there's no wrong motivation. I think everybody has a different. And then my motivation for making art is that sort of search of something dynamic, something living, something moving. And that's always sort of wonder of the nature, wonder of the life itself. You know, why are we here? Why we exist? What drives us to do what we do? And then what we get excited about it, what we love about it, or what we hate, dislike, and then you know, crash. And so those are kind of combination of different history. And I'm particularly interested in the atmosphere movement. So these are the kites I've been making for the last I don't know, about 7-8 years. I've been making those kites, and then we can fly them, and then just excuse doing the tedious work in the studio, doing that copper engraving, which I love to do. So when I think about making the kite, and I often kind of feel these creatures. I mean, they're a piece of paper and a bamboo and then or plastic sometimes, and then has an image on it and they fly. And once it's airborne, it seems like it feels like they're alive. And so I get really excited about this sort of animated quality of those objects. And then, so when I look at the history of the kites, that you know date back about 3,000 years ago in China, and that predates paper making. So they were using a silk and bamboos and so on. Some are celebration, some are like this one is the image on the left side is in the Pakistan. They use those kites to sort of bring the spring weather coming in. When springtime, there's weather changes and the air coming in, and when you can fly the kites, and like, okay, so this is the time that we're going to start planting seeds into the ground, and the winter's gone, and sort of celebration for the springtime. Or some people use that as a scientific experimentations. And so this is some Japanese kites. You can kind of see this ukiyo-e woodcut and tell you this sort of events of a it's a festival. and also it's a kind of excuse to meet people together, and then also got a seasonal events and just being outdoor and then feeling the air, and then most importantly, I liked about this fact of flying kites is that everybody's looking up. And then this is a really nice prints by Hokusai. And I love this geometry of the composition. You see the mountain, the background, you see the architecture in the front, you see the triangles, and then those the people are probably fixing the roof, maybe. And then and meanwhile, there's somebody's flying kite out there, and then maybe they're preparing for this bad weather. Who knows? Okay? So it's just kind of interesting, the daily image of the such a dynamic composition. Kites go over Mountain Fuji. And then 1900s and 20th century, the flights taking place in the Wright brothers in 1903, but prior to that, or a lot of study for aerodynamic was advanced by the technology of the war and of World War Ones and so on, or prior to that. And then so they're using the combination of the photograph, putting camera, and then to taking the aerial photograph, like a drones we use it today. So in 2020, and I kind of proposed this idea for Southern Graphic Print Council in Puerto Rico, and then I asked about 40 artists to make kites. So I gave them a Tyvek of the plastic, and to them it's a 36 by 48, yeah, and same size as the woodcut, Sarah. so that's a pretty good scale. It's on a Tyvek, it's a plastic material. So this one's a woodcut, but of course people did different kind of medium to print on it. And so this is sort of physics of the kite, and when winds blows, it will hit that and then and bottom of the kites and create the bottom high pressure and create tension with the line, and it creates a lift and then drag and weight. So lift, drag, weight, and tension, those four forces power become kind of even out and balance it, and it will stay there. And I can kind of consider these terminology as a sort of life philosophy. And sometimes there's no wind, so you just have to deal with it, and then just stuck on the ground. And then, but it seems like they're feel, to me it is like they feel like, I feel like they're kind of alive. And then so I'll test it out. Bridle connection of the line and the kite's very important part of this process. And then make sure it's all balanced out and weight distribution is correct. And it's very important because it's off balance, it will spin the kite, or sometimes it breaks. And then they're not invincible material. They're this is a Tyvek and carbon rods, but they do break and they do crash. So I take those kites to different locations, and then sometimes I take to the Wyoming or North Carolina where the winds blows really nicely, and I fly them like this. And so this is kind of example of a display indoor. This is in the University of Tennessee in the art and architecture building. So I created this contraption with the lines, with a pulley and a weight now the end. And so when you pull the lines, you can sort of control the kite in the indoor. So you can kind of simulate resistance of the airs and the gravities and so on. So I worked together with a bunch of artists, and I'm going to go through this. This is Mike Lyon from Kansas City, and then he did like a selfies, and then in the CNC router, instead of using the drills, he used the markers to make those kind of things. So this was supposed to happen 2020, but that didn't happen because of the pandemic. So it will postpone to 2025 April, Puerto Rico. I hope they will happen. We don't know yet. So there are some artists you might recognize the names. And then this became quite an international project. I had a lot of artists from Italy, and they're from North Carolina, and Carla Harkmiller's in Ohio, Miguel Argon. Here's Nick. So he did that, and Jenny Schmidt. Stephanie Dyke, Mijin, she's in there, and Bill Fick, Robka. So that was fun. I mean, just sending out material. They'll draw, print. Jin Lee's in there, and then print it on the Tyvek material, and then I'll cut them, sew them, and together, and then make a kite out of it, and then fly them. It's a lot of fun. You guys know Bob Fleming's, right? Yeah. And so these are the kites. I've made about 40 of them. So kind of making of these kites, learned how to use the sewing machine, and then I made little small parts. I created sort of assembly line, and it was a carbon rod, tested out. And then in the beginning, I was making a lot of smaller kites for the economical reason, but they didn't fly that well. Bigger kites flies a lot better. So then that's how it became 36 by 48, become a sort of standard. Another thing about this type of the kite is called a rokkaku kite, a hexagon kite, and it's pretty easy. You can remove the center rods and you can just roll up and travel. It's very super lightweight, nothing to break. It's easy to travel, easy to ship to different locations. So that was sort of advantage of this kites, and it's not just one or two, like 40 of them, shipping to location, fly them together. And then when the wind is right and a steady winds and just sort of stays up, it's pretty fun. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know if that was all. Go on.
So in the beginning, I was kind of trying to create a design from paper airplane, folded paper, and then just look at how they make. And also, I was really interested in making these non-structural kites. So it looks like a parachute, and then so those are a lot of fun to make it. And then these exercise of making these kites become a good part of the drawing. And then naturally, and I had to learn to see from how the natural world offers opportunity to learn from the flight itself. So I was making these kind of kites, but these are the time just sort of over designed and overworked, and then they didn't fly that well actually. So, but it was a good learning experience, but I had to look back, and there was a mistake I made, but it was a worse, it's a good lesson for that. So these are the kites of a non-structural kite. And then basically the air filling creates this wind shape, and then we'll give the lift. So always this attention, and then creating a form. So this was a Southern Graphic conference we had in Knoxville in 2015. That's crazy. 2015 sounds like how many years ago? 8 years ago. That's crazy. So I worked together with the Cannonball Press. They do relief printing, and they cut the MDF printing on the ripsock nylon with silver ink, and then created a pattern of the hexagon and the pentagon shape, like a soccer ball. So I sewed them together, and then putting this in the air. They use that, you see that at the car dealers, and then put underneath it, and then we created this a sphere. That was a type theme of the conference. So that's what the inside looked like, and a little tiny holes there, and that's where the air blows out, and then create a little nice balance there. So it's kind of planetarium like a feel to it. So in the beginning, I make this kind of form with a Gampi paper, and then so my interest of the using a symmetry is associated with a balance of the not just the design, but the balance of the weight distribution. So I went to visit a place called Sanjo in the Niigata Prefecture in Japan. That's where they produce a lot of kites. And then I was looking at those kind of architecture. You see just like really organized a structural frame versus this dynamic calligraphy, coexist in the same space. And I thought it was quite exciting to see just the difference between the use of the natural material, but they're like fully designed, and then also like this kind of the stone structure is like animated, and almost it's going to move and so on. So I was very excited about seeing those kind of things. So I made this a bunch of kites like that, and then there's a rectangle of kites. They're interesting design, but they don't fly that well. So I really have to go back to the drawing board again, and then start studying about different kind of kites, and then different kind of flying device. And then now I started kind of pay attention to like more, instead of the birds, I was more interested in this insect. So the cicadas wing shape, and this is sort of simple version of the cicadas wing shape. So I started making these kites, created this bone structure with a bamboo, and then apply the kozo paper, thin kozo paper. And then on the top of that, I glue a collage, gummy paper. And gummy paper is so strong. It's so thin, lightweight, but they're very strong paper. So I started making these kind of patterns and designs of different kites. And these are what we call a high aspect ratio kites. And then they're very stable. Requires 2 lines to control the kites. But so I was playing with the different kind of shapes and so on. And then in the process of flying, they do crash, they break, so it's occasionally I have to fix them. So, but most of the exciting part, and I get to go to different locations. This was in Utah, southern Utah, and it was still snow on the top, but wind was blowing, and this kite pretty much broke down and then falling to the parts, and then I have to fix it. Some installation idea, I like to hang them face up, and this is in a gallery setting. It's like a really concrete, cold structure versus like soft material. And then when there's, air movement, they kind of swing and then move around a little bit. And see the little kids rolling around, and then see the other side of kites, and that makes my day. And so there's another display situation in the gallery. So every exhibit, if I have the opportunity to go to the gallery, and I can just hang them, and that's a lot of fun to do those kind of things. So, and I created a pulley system, so I can just pull the line to bring the kite up and down, and then so you can play with it. Make me feel like they're like kind of like a wave to me, like create little tiny parts piece by itself. But when we become a group and they move around, make me think about that like motion of the wave. So Sanjo, that's the birthplace of the Rokkaku kite, hexagon kite. And then I visited this family, Mr. Suzo, and then 350 years of family business. They've been making kites for that long time. And then so they have this Sanjo Ikagasen kite festival, and then you see this a bunch of guys flying them, and then that become an annual event, and locals get really excited. They live for it, and then so that's him. So I went to talk to him, and yeah, so that's what he's been doing that. And then so I kind of give the different workshop. This was in the last year. I gave workshop in the Maui, and then we made a kite. And then fortunately, the wind was really, really good that day. So we made a bunch of kites with monotype, and then fly them like that. The motion of the kite is unpredictable, and each kite's going to behave slightly different. And then not all the kites are equally made. So it's kind of fun to see how this one's kind of going really crazy. And then I gave another workshop last summer in the Fresno State. And then so we made a bunch of kites as well. So that's the kind of display situation. So I've been making kites for about 7-8 years now, learning to be really efficient with the material. And then first of all, important part is like keeping a light. And that's so good as an artist, like when you make artwork, like sometimes printmaker, we have to frame the artwork, and all of a sudden you need a crate, and then you have to ship the whole entire crate. So you have to pay a lot of money, and the grass breaks, and then, but kites, nothing breaks, I mean, of course it's a piece of paper and it does make a hole, but it's easy to fix them. So I'm gonna go all the way back to early 90s when I was an undergrad in Portland, Oregon. And then that was a time that I was working clay. I was a ceramic artist and there was 3D sculpture major. And then I would place that object in place like this. And then when tide comes in, break it. So I think even at the time I was associated with the fluid mechanics and the natural force and time and so on. So that was a first, my love of printmaking was the lithography. And so I did a lot of prints there, pretty much live and breathe that, grinding stone and make a lot of prints. So that was in the early 90s. So I was doing this kind of things. And then, so that was my thesis work at the undergrads in Portland, Oregon. Yeah. And then 1992, I moved to Krakow, Poland. And you can kind of see this like architecture here is like very, very communist architecture there. And so Berlin Wall fell down in 89. So it was just like 3 years after that. So it's still things are relatively chaotic. So there I found this artist union studio in Krakow, Poland. And then I just grind a stone in the morning and print in an afternoon and draw all night. And then I had about 6 or 7 stones going on simultaneously. So I did this every single day. And that was a really, really great experience. Now I look back. I mean, I was poor, I was hungry. I didn't know what's going to happen in the future. And then Poland seems like a really chaotic. And I was learned to speak Polish and then, drink vodka with a lot of artists. There's early 90s, there was the war was going on in Yugoslavia. So there's a lot of refugee artists from Yugoslavia are coming to Poland. It's sort of kind of like similar things happening right now. It's a lot of Ukrainian artists moving to Poland, escaping from that. So I get to talk with those guys. And then I had to learn a lot about drawing, which I didn't do a whole lot when I was an undergrad. So it was very nice to be able to work together. And then this is our artist I was working with. He's from Romania. And then after that, I wanted to learn more about intaglio. So I moved to Bratislava, Slovakia. It was right after Czechoslovakia have a split, and then the Czech Republic and Slovakia Republic, they become different state relatively peacefully. And but there's an art academy in Bratislava, which is a Slovakia side, and they had a great illustration program. So I studied under a professor named Dusan Kalai, and he does a lot of illustration for children's book, picture book. So, and I made a lot of intaglio printing. That's what I learned how to use a burin to do copper engraving. Copper engraving is such a medium that it's not many people do it. It's a pain in the neck, and then it's hard to sharpen tools, and it's not really a popular medium. But I was really, really fascinated with that, the specifics of this metal tool. And after that, I moved to Poland, to Poznan, and I was going to do lithography, but the studio was a mess. So I got myself plexiglass, and I made a bunch of monotypes. And that was a great experience. I taped the plexiglass on the window, just ink it up and using a rag, Q-tips, anything, and then just make a drawing. And then, if it's anything good, I'll print it, and nothing comes out, I'll clean the plate to go home. So that was a excellent drawing exercise. And then I got to grad school in Canada, and then so that's what I started working really large scale relief printing. And then those are Sintra. And then so this was a black Sintra. I spray painted with white. And when I engrave it, I get black line. And then so what I did was I printed white ink on the white paper, oil base. Okay, let it dry. And then I mix a little bit of cobalt dryer in there. And then after that, go over with sumi ink. So the sumi ink is a water base. They'll fill in the open space and become a black, and then everything else resist. So that was one way to my attempt to sort of simulate the intaglio process. And I wanted to do the intaglio, but I didn't want to buy a copper plate this size or zinc plate this size. It's really expensive. But the relief I can do with a cheap material and a relatively large scale and economical way. So I did a lot of those kind of things. And live in Edmonton. So this kind of landscape format. My childhood, I born and raised in Osaka, Japan, but moved to Wyoming, Sheridan, Wyoming, in northern Wyoming, and when I was 15 years old. So I spent a lot of time in a place like that, and then that really gave me a lot of impact of the natural form. So I made these kind of, this is a relief printing too. So these are bunkers in the Denmark. And then after that, I got a job, real job in Utah State University in 2000. And then I spent a lot of time carrying a copper plate to the actual location and then draw from the natural rock formation. Southern Utah, northern Arizona, incredible place. And then so that was a great opportunity to spend time there and taking the copper plates with I even carry the acid, ferric chloride, and a Tupperware. So I will draw it and I will bring back to my campsite and I will etch it in my van. And then so that was that. Sometimes I make a drawing on a hard ground and I put in the backpack and I come back and everything is melted and all drawings are gone. You know, those things happens. And then I think these when I put the artwork in the outdoor and there's unexpected things happens. And then I remember reading about like artists like Ansel Adams, you know, he will go out there and taking a photograph of the central Utah and southern Utah and so on with the barrels and you know strange chemical things happens and because temperatures and so on, and then that is sort of part of that to deal with it. So I did a lot of those kind of prints. So living in Utah gave me a lot of opportunity. And then before I studied geology, before I studied clay, I was a geology major in the college. So in a way, I was very interested in the sort of sediment of the time and making this kind of landscape. And southern Utah is very hot during the summer. And so I hike at nighttime. It's incredible. And under the moonlight, you can see a lot, actually. So you see this monochromatic world. And naturally, during the daytime, this is all vermilion, red clay, and then blue sky, that kind of environment. But in the nighttime, it's just different world. And surprisingly, in the desert, in the nighttime, there's a lot of activities. It's like desert rats and then those insects flying around, and it's surprising. It's a lot of activity going on. It's not the desert we think of as a quiet place. It's an activity. Yeah, so did this the monotypes. Monotypes kind of practice monotype is my idea of cleaning a roller, I guess. And then while I'm cleaning a roller, might as well make an artwork. And then if it's good, I'll print it. If not, I'll just clean it, just go home. And then so you know this was a really good, very free way of drawing. I mean, I'm going to use the word drawing. It sounds like really formal and a fancy word, but the reality that is, I was just cleaning the roller. In the process of cleaning a roller, I guess, what do you call it, byproduct. So, and then moved to Delaware, started making those kind of prints. And I think this one I made it at the Illinois State University. They had there's a printmaking conference there once. Anyway, so I was using rock sandal. That's it. I was walking on the plate. It's drawing with the feet. So these are 6 foot tall, and then it's pretty big prints like that. So that was fun. The reason I did this a vertical format was that I was supposed to make a design for the snowboard, which that didn't happen, but that was original intent to do that. So drawing, well, monotype is as a drawing for me, and it's very quick and spontaneous, and then it's a powerful medium, and also I can go very large scale, and then also I make this kind of things like a little tiny ceramic piece laying together, and then you see the strata of different colored clay, and then sort of mimicking that geological surface, the wrinkle of the earth. And then so I make those are tiny pieces. They're kind of fun to do. And a lot of different collages, combining different prints together. I mean, these are what I call it upcycle prints. Like, and if I made a bunch of prints and then it's like, oh, I don't know what to do with it. But later on, I would just print different layers and put them together. Hey, this kind of works, So I did a lot of those kind of collages that they're fun to do. So what I really love to do is copper engraving. That's what I did this time for the making edition. And I enjoy the intensity. I enjoy the time. I enjoy the material that works. And then when I see this image like that, and I can just stare at it, and it's how expressive those lines are, and then with a great control. But even the artists like this, and then I don't know if you see little tiny mistakes, you see the scratch lines and so on, like there's a oops, So here we go. This is a human handmade of prints. And then of course we admire artists like Jan Miller, but when you see it's little tiny things like, oh, even the Jan Miller made a oops scratch there. Makes me happy. And then so that's the world I spent. And then a little tiny. This is a photograph from the microscope. So this is a really super tiny world. And then it's a great way to sort of do that. And I'm slowly finding out when is a good time for me to work is early morning. I think that's what I'm slowly coming down to. Early morning, like I don't even open the computer. I'll just sit on the plate and start carving it. And so this is one of my favorite prints by Francisco Villamena. And so fantastic, just great facial expression like that. So I think those kind of expressions later on came to use for the kites as well. So, and from the time I was folding a print, so this is a prior before you fold it. And if I fold the prints right after print it and started getting those symmetry images, and I thought it was quite interesting. And then so playing with this is a kinetic sand, it's called it. It's like a Swedish toy, and it's a sand mixture with some silicone, so it doesn't really get messy. It's a really fun things to play with it. So I put it right next to the mirror, and then looking for some face or something lead towards that, and so I kind of play with it, and that's good, brain exercise and then drawing exercise. And then, so here we go. So I made a half of the plate and I put mirror right next to it. And so I can see this whole entire thing. And then this method, I learned from the textile design and when I was in Denmark. And then, so that's kind of how they did. Well, now they have this software in the computer, but the old days they had the L-shaped mirror and they make a pattern. So you kind of see just repeated the patterns. So I made a bunch of prints, folded. And then, so this is I see it's exactly half worked and then folded. And then I printed it something like this. And then if I print on top of each other, it become like this. And then image like this. This is sort of kind of homage to the Francisco Villamena exhibition. And then, so this is my childhood train ride and print together, it become like this. So this is synthesized in our head. We are forced to see the two things simultaneously, and the two information comes, then I'll come to our own conclusion. So I put those two pairs together and become like that. So that's a sort of kind of general plan for my method making those symmetry images. And then once I get the formula down, and then the rest of that is just matchmaking, I guess. How about this and this combined together? It works together, and some are kind of funny, some are kind of creepy, some are a little scary. And then, so I made a lot of those. Go very quickly. Some of the facial expressions coming from masks from different part of the world. Some ancient ones and some theater ones. So. And then I started combining with the monotype. So power of the monotype that has a really strong impact. But the power of the engraving on the interior has the level of the detail. So in a large composition like that, and I have a dynamic composition with a monotype, but I have really slow, small parts. the engraving that has a lot more detail and it slows down the viewers. So I made those combination monotype and then Shinpole together. So these are that's pretty big. That was, I think, about 6 foot tall. 72 by 36, I think that's what it was. And then so there's some you can kind of tell the scale. And then to me, it's like the if the center section was a belt, or if I see the kites, and then within that environment, so it's kind of kite flying. I wasn't really aware of that, but why am I doing this kind of things? Just sort of connected together. You know, sometimes the artistic activity that I have no idea why I'm doing it, and then in retrospect, like, oh, that's what I was doing.
Mhm.
Feel nice if it was like, oh, I'm on the right track. But while I'm doing that, I have no idea. Like, oh, I'm so confused. But this one I made in Buffalo, I think, at the Mijin's studio. So this was a type of the artwork I did in 2006 in Utah. And then you see this hexagon shape right there. And then, you know, that's 2005. And then here, 2019. So I'm kind of still dealing with this hexagon shape in the natural environment. Strange.
The title of the exhibit is called the static dynamic. Everything is constantly in motion. Everything is constantly in moving. My prior interest to the printmaking was a lot to do with the geology. It's a human perspective. It doesn't seem like moving a lot, but the mountain is moving, tectonic plate is moving. We're constantly moving and transmitting and the information and the feeling together, and then to celebrate our being in this planet.
Questa mostra ha anche una sorta di struttura narrativa con trittici e dittici che vengono visti in sequenza su uno sfondo con delle immagini al centro, quindi sviluppando quasi un carattere letterario narrativo della mostra. Il ragionare con pochi elementi ma fuori dagli schemi, cioè parlare di due immagini che si compongono 1000 volte sempre diverse. È stato anche interessante vedere come lui cercava di indurre i ragazzi a essere se stessi, a
So right after that, that was a January or December 2019. And right after that pandemic hit. And then so I had to come back. And then while I'm making these kind of things. So that's these are the homemade, all the prints I made it, and the small parts together, glued together, and making a large composition. So I mean, we all experience this pandemic, and if something come out and in a forced environment, I think when I look back and like it's a really grungy, angry artwork to me. But so this was my living room. So I was just kind of collage them. I could go to studio and university and print it, but we divided at the time. So the certain time you cannot be more than 3 people in the studio. So I had to come back and then collage it. Collage I can do at home. So, and then I made a bunch of small prints like that too. So they're about like 9 by 12, I think, you know, very small prints. And then glue them together and become like that. So a bunch of little, like a kind of like a totem poles, I guess. So here we go. This is a print I did for the Rochester Print Club. I made a bunch of drawings, and then I come up with the final drawings, and then place it on the copper plates. The copper plates is 18 by 18, and paper is 15 by 15. And then so I engraved it, inked up, and that's what it looks like. And so okay, all right, need to work more, and then you can kind of see the scratch and get rid of it. So. And then I look at in the mirror and see what's look like in the symmetry situation. And then, so that's the first impression I did. And then when I fold it, it become like that. So that's what the prints you guys have. And also how I fold it. So this is a folded vertically, right? You see that? And then next one, I folded it horizontally. I don't know if you can see it.
Hmm.
Can you see that? Let's go back with this one. There you go. So this, if I fold it horizontally, it become like this. So depends on how you fold it, and it's like this mirror image will come out in different ways. So and so one confession I do for this, because I was printing at home, I was using acrylic ink, and then I was wiping it, and I was getting pretty reasonable result out of it. But acrylic ink, it's not high contrast enough. So after that, I started going to studio, and then late night there was nobody's around. I use the hot plates, and then using the gambling ink without any modification, just straight up stiff ink, and I printed it. It came out perfect. So I that was something I learned. I was about halfway through, and I realized, like, oh my god, this acrylic ink doesn't work. The oil-based ink works a lot better. So that was a hard lesson for me, but it was a perfect and then was learning experience. So thank you, Gabe. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discover those kind of old things.
Mhm.
So, and then using those stiff ink and the hot plates without any modification in ink, and then so I was making a bunch of those prints, and then at the point I could go back to studio, so using their bigger press. So this is about 36 by 48, maybe a little smaller, I think. So these are kind of fun to make. And finally, I did some of the collage on the snowboard. Back at home. So another passion I have in my life is doing this kind of things. I actually fly kite, get on the snow. This is on a place called the Big Horn Mountain in northern Wyoming, between Wyoming and Montana border. And this place is about 10,000 feet above sea level. So the air's a little thinner, but consistent wind, good solid 20 miles an hour wind. And this day was a pretty light, but I get on the snowboard or sometimes ski, and then using those kites and then cruise, making a quote unquote, I like to draw on the snow. This is my research, my artistic research. But so that's what I love to do. So, and I also do that on the water as well. So that's a nice sensation to be on the water. I mean, it can be real scary too, but just using that safety system to do that. And then so this is last week I was on the Kauai with the artist Sally French. We made a prints together. So I made a bunch of collages, and then she would draw on the top. And I think we made like 30 kites or so. So this is a workshop I just had, and then in the island of the Kauai. And so that was a wonderful workshop. And so this is our collaboration with Sally. So I make a collage, and then she would just draw those faces, and then she does spray paints, and so it's kind of nice to see her input and her interpretation in there. So this one's, she even got the silver spray paints and so on. So that was a fun. Just came back from there. I'm gonna end with this image here. This is another Hawkseye prints, but like image like this, people traveling, and then of course the winds blew in, and then there was a paper flying all over, and then the humans experiencing this challenge of natural environment. But there's a poetic notion of this as the sort of indomitable spirits of the human, but also there's like that we can't really fight against the natural world anyways, and we're just sort of existing between, and then those kind of things happens, and somehow Hawkseye captured this image, and then describe that the psychology and the notion behind and those peoples and the events taking place. Okay, I think that was my talk. and I went 5 minutes over. Sorry.
Ah, that's okay. It's beautiful work. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And of course, I did forget to tell people to put their questions in the chat, but there aren't too many people. So why don't we, if you have a question, you can like raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can just ask.
April.
Where do you get your energy?
Yeah.
It just sounds like you've been traveling everywhere and doing everything. It's amazing. Really
Yeah.
nice to see it in one place too. I love the copper engravings.
Mm.
I always love those, but to see them in context with the other things. And
Mhm.
look in Poland,
Mhm.
I hadn't realized you spent so much time there. Really amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was the reason I went there. I mean, there's different reasons, for the history of printmaking, but at the time, it was an inexpensive place to be. And then it was my generation. I had a friends from Portland that they started out bicycle messenger service in Prague.
Hmm.
It's Portland, so they have a lot of bicycle messenger. And Prague is a city that it's not really, it's not an automobile city. It's like, but great for mountain bike.
Yeah.
And then, well, now they don't do that anymore. But that was in the late '80s, early '90s, right after the Berlin Wall fell down. So their group of people, moved there. So that was a kind of one inspiration for me to go there. And of course, printmaking history is fantastic and all that, but very inexpensive place to that helped me a lot.
It was then. I guess it's gotten more expensive.
Not anymore. No, now Poland's expensive, but back then it was very affordable.
And what about Japan? Have you done workshops there as well?
Little bit, but
You went to study to learn about the kite making, the traditional kite making?
yeah, it was a workshop. I just went to visit. I got in contact with a kite maker and I went and visit his house and then, spend a couple of days with him and then follow him around. And then he has that mountain with a bamboo forest. So he cultivates and then dry them. And then I didn't realize that it takes like about 6, 7, 8 months to dry during the winter time when the dry season. They'll cut it in a year before and then let it dry in a cold environment. Niigata is a very cold place, so it dries really nicely. And then once the bamboo is hardened and it's easier to split, and then so that's what they do. So
that's the kind of meticulous care with the materials that I see in the Japanese woodcut, making the tools from natural materials, or the horse tails from the winter is different from the summer, and and they use the bamboo too.
That's right. Yeah.
But
it's a project of like making kites, like a bamboo or kozo or gampi. They're all fibers really. And then some are hard fiber, some are soft fiber, and then combined together and glued together, and then I can fly them. So
and but why did you choose kozo sometimes and synthetic fibers other times?
Synthetic fibers, it's for the bigger material, like a Tyvek.
Oh, for the scale.
It's for the bigger one. A paper that does have the kozo paper, I found that was when the larger scale, they tend to grab the moisture and get heavier.
Oh,
Yeah. So I had to treat them, and then you know what they do? They paint with a persimmon.
yeah. They do that in the woodcut too.
For the umbrella.
For the baren.
Make it waterproof, right?
Make it waterproof that way, yeah.
Yeah.
So you did that with the kozo fiber for the kites?
I don't do it, but the Scudo kite maker, and then you got that's what they do. But of course, nowadays it's a little cheaper to just use they even use like a hairspray, I guess, to make it like a fixture, I guess, to make it less absorbent, so they don't suck that moisture anymore, and then make it. Yeah.
Looks like oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, it looks like Claudia has a question too.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you so much for your presentation. Loved it. It was very informative and fascinating. Love seeing all your work. Now, in terms of your plates, you don't really, I'm assuming you don't do a lot of additions. You use your plate. You don't cancel your plates then. That's what I'm assuming. Because
Yeah.
you use them over and over and then you mix them with other images. So really additions for you is not your direction. Your plate is like one of a kind, but then you print them in with other images. So it's really an endless possibility. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You never cancel your plates.
Yeah, I mean, for this edition for the Rochester Print Club, I canceled the plate. I cut the corner and I ship it to you. So, you know, but during the pandemic time, what I did, I didn't want to buy new plates. I just dug into my old archive and then just engrave over the existing image or using a backside. I've been using a lot of backside.
Okay.
Yeah, and then has some acid bites and so on, but I just polish as much as I could. And then,
Right.
yeah, and then after I print it, and always there's something, like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, a new idea comes in, and I work on it. So the engraving is such a spontaneous, I don't have to prepare anything, just to add things and print it, and just a little print it. I don't have to go through the putting ground and etch it, and then all that process. I don't have to go through none of that. So that's the beauty of engraving, very similar to dry point in a way.
The engraving is amazing. Yeah. Do you teach the engraving? Is anybody doing that anymore?
Well, I mean, I do teach to the advanced students because it's really what do you call it? Once they start engraving and burring, and then everybody's gonna have a real difficult time, and they're turn off in a way.
Yeah, have to start something easy.
So when I teach, okay, so I'll be teaching that in a Frogman in a couple of weeks from now, and so we started with a Lexan plate. So I teach them how to sharp the burin and using a Lexan plate to engrave it. And that's actually engraving Lexan plates is fun. It's a very easy, and also the similar sort of sensation, and just to make it super shallow. On the Lexan, you can actually engrave, but on the copper plates, I don't. Engrave is not right way. It's like I'm like more like a skating in a surface, very, very thin surface. So that's only different. So it's a good practice with the Lexan plates and move on to engraving. It's an old craft, and it's a very particular.
Goltzius is
Goltzius? Yeah.
Goltzius, my favorite guy.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's really interesting to see you using those same lines. They're very expressive.
Yeah, the thickness of line when you go deep and then shallow, and then when I was learning engraving, that my teacher said that you're going to swim inside a copper plate.
I love that. And one of your videos there, you kind of kite surfing over the water. I could see those similar lines in the water almost. That's what you have.
That's my it is my tax deductible research expense.
Yeah.
It's part of my professional activity, I guess.
Love it. Does anyone else have any questions?
I guess I was wondering if you can share the story that you told me when I was working with you, with everybody here, because I was so amazed by hearing that. So I asked the Koichi, like, how did you start like folding in half and then, like using mirrored image in your practice? And then I remember you say that at the beginning it was a little bit more like, sorry, my nephew's awake. You say like it was more for like a, saving material, like you just said, So can you share that story? Because I think everybody will love to
Sure.
hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was undergrad in Portland and PNCA, we have an annual print exchange. So all printmakers, professors to students to the everybody make edition, and we'll do the exchange. That's kind of annual event. And I completely forgot about deadline. And then my friends came up and like, hey, are you prepared for the edition tomorrow? Like tomorrow? Like how many? Like 32. Like no. So I whipped up the print, and I had already had a plate. And then so what I did was, instead of making a 30 of them, I made a 15 of them, and I put a fold it together, and so I have 2 prints, right? So, and within the edition of 30, 15 of them are right side and 15 of them are the left side. So I kind of did that. I don't know, early on, I've discovered that intaglio print, if you underwipe it and you can transfer it, and you can transfer almost 99% of the ink to the second paper. And thin lines are not so much, but thick lines are really easy to transfer. So that was a kind of beginning of my discovery for folding a paper. And then later on, I realized, like, well, there's a symmetry, so I can kind of play with that. So I think that transferring one paper to another, that was kind of beginning of folding a paper things. And then it doesn't work that well in lithography or relief printing, but intaglio works perfectly great. And line etching's better. Aquatint does somewhat, but it does one side is darker than, and second generation is a little lighter. So, but the critical parts, like when you have a symmetry, critical part is just like a center line with a meeting part. But here, an outside part, it can be really different. But as long as the transition middle is a clean, and then one side is slightly darker, one side is lighter, it's not much of the issue for me. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah,
I think I mean, I definitely admire that how you use repetition, as a character of printmaking, so smartly, but also efficiently and economically at the same time. I think that's something I learn a lot from you, and then I hope other people see that, because repetition, just like like printing over and over from other matrices, and it's something what we do, but also matrix itself to create a new image and result. It's just I don't see that often in other people's practice. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think I like the idea of what you call it, upcycling. Like what we do, like you'll spend 20 hours on copper plates, and that 20 hours can be expanded to many different applications, and it's just too good to use one print. I think. I don't know. I guess some musician, they do that. They create a certain section of the music, and then they will create that sort of second version, third version, and then they will loop it and they put another things on top, so I think that kind of similar idea of I use it, I call it upcycling. Anything else?
Very inspiring.
Yes, I agree.
Well, thank you very much for having me for the project. This is an honor to be of this edition. And when I first heard, like, I had to make 100 prints, like, oh my God, I don't know, I wasn't really sure about it. But by doing that, I learned so much from that, so much respect for making an edition, which I try to avoid. But this one, like I when I compared, like, this is not acceptable, I have to print it again, and then started changing the ink, and
None of the others are editioned at all?
so in the beginning I was using the aqua ink, right, and I started editioning, and about around 30 of them, and I tried different ink and realized, like, oh my God, there's all the 30 are just not happening, so I started from scratch. Yeah.
But I mean, some of the other images you never edition, they're all one of a kind? All the photo ones?
I rarely edition. Yeah.
Mm.
But what I do, I made a bunch of prints. So if let's say okay, two plates, plate A and plate B, and then I work on the plate A, and I make it probably 10 of them, which is I can be called it edition. But I put different elements on that each print. So it's gonna be like a mono print, I guess. And each one's gonna be
Well,
unique.
variations.
Variant.
Yeah.
Mm.
Isn't
Combined
there a word, edition?
Variation.
Okay.
variation, yeah.
Yeah, variant.
But also, you know, I want to emphasize that there's a lot of mistakes happen in between too. There's like this one, put together, see what's gonna happen. Like, oh
So
no,
you print, so you print the plates multiple times, but it's not an exact addition. You mix them up.
they mix them up or changing different color, or print was ala pupe or something like that, and then I'll have a lot of prints on a Gampi paper. And then once I have it in Gampi paper, the rest of that is collage. And then when collage,
Gampi's the collage,
yeah. And
And you
then when
print
I
the
started
engravings? You print the engravings on
mostly
collage,
engravings.
on
Mostly-
Gampi?
yeah, mostly engraving on the Gampi paper. I mean, I do little bit of etching, but last couple of 3 years, I was etching at home, but my sink, my kitchen sink started turning yellow and orange, and it's like, all right, not happening.
Uh-oh.
And then just the engraving is just it's a very peaceful way to wake up in the morning. I think, I don't have to prepare anything, just a drawing, and
Do you
then I
Do you
carve it.
dampen the Gampi?
Hmm?
Do you dampen the Gampi?
Yes. Yeah, when you print it, it's a easier, better quality.
I haven't printed much on Gampi,
Mhm.
but I love that, the surface of it.
Yeah, it picks up pretty much everything. I mean, I can use a Kozo, but the Gumpy's a little more. What I like about it when I goes to the press, it creates a little sheen. It reflects more light, and that's
Beautiful
beautiful.
shine, yeah.
Have you thought of with your kites and the way you exhibit them so that you can walk through underneath them and the way they float on your displays? Have you ever had the urge to do mobiles,
Yeah.
in terms of, when you talk about your plates and using them in multifaceted ways, and you cut up some of your images, have you ever thought of, cutting up your images as well and creating a mobile? Have you ever?
I thought about it. I never done it, and then I think that there's a Sally French and I, we were thinking about making a fan actually, or air turbine, and then it kind of circulates, and these are kind of mechanics I think about. I mean, just using because it's a paper and bamboo, it's a perfect matching for making a lightweight air inducing material. And then fan was one thing, air turbine, an extension of the kite, and I think the mobiles and or the hanging a piece of artwork is the next state. Yes.
It's just to see your work hung up in that way that you did was beautiful. It's such a nice way to it's a different way to like have a piece of art in your home.
Yeah.
Instead of on the wall, you really are just having it float through in the air, and you get to see it from different aspects. And then if the wind blows and stuff, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I made some lanterns actually that worked really nice.
Oh,
Lanterns, yeah.
yeah.
Back there.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
That's Koza paper,
Okay.
intaglio, and it has a bamboo structure to it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So nice, beautiful stuff. Thank you so much. Really, it's
Thank
You're
you very much.
fascinating.
Yeah, that was great. Great to
Yeah.
see so much work.
Thank you, Koichi.
You're
love you.
welcome.
I love your
Can't wait
drawings.
to get the print.
Yeah, I'm glad. I
Forward
hope
to
you
seeing it.
enjoyed the print, and it was a good learning experience, and then
100, huh? That's
Yeah, I think I made 110 or something like that. But of course, you know, there's a lot of reject in between.
Mm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Have you ever photographed, I know I keep thinking, but have you ever, you have your plate and then you print out whatever images, 10 or whatever, and then you take another plate
Mhm.
and then you print it on top. Do you ever do a photograph the sequence of your work? Like you took this plate and then printed on top another one, and then you created this new image. And then from that other plate, like the sequence of the evolution of your pieces.
Yeah, definitely I should do. I have tried a little bit of the and then I uploaded to the Vimeo section. I can forward it to you all. But yeah, I mean, there is some idea of the how image evolved. It become like kind of like a stop motion
Story.
animation.
Yeah, it's like a visual story with
Mhm.
different chapters,
Yes, yes.
Lovely.
So
Okay.
great to see you all. I have to make
Mm.
dinner, so I'm gonna log off, but
Okay.
thank you for this wonderful talk. Great to see you.
Thank
And
you.
I'll see you all on Facebook or somewhere in the print world.
Okay.
Take
Good to
care.
see you, Nick.
Yeah. Nick and Mizin say thank you. I say thank you. Thank you so much for talking with us about your work. It's very beautiful. And yeah, I guess that's all we got for you guys. So
Yeah.
And if in the future, if you have any more, if you do any videos or I don't know, YouTube or demonstrations, please pass them along to us because I know
Mm.
that a member would love to see them.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can just info, or you can email me too, or
I will do
Catherine.
that.
Yeah.
Madeline, how do we get to see the video of this Zoom?
So it's a great question. It should be recorded, and I think we'll put it on our website. And I'm
Okay.
sure, when it's all technologically figured out, we'll
Yeah.
send it to everyone via email.
All right.
Thank you so
Whatever.
much. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
Take
great to
care.
meet you.
Bye-bye.
Koichi, wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful.